reverence for life, aware of the suffering caused by the destruction of life. I am committed to cultivating the insight of interbeing and compassion, and learning ways to protect the lives of people, animals, plants, and minerals. I am determined not to kill, not to let others kill, and not to support any act of killing in the world, in my thinking, or in my way of life. Seeing that harmful actions arise from anger, fear, greed, and intolerance, which in turn come from dualistic and discriminative thinking, I will cultivate openness, non-discrimination, and non-attachment to views in order to transform violence, fanaticism, and dogmatism in myself and the world. True happiness. Aware of the suffering caused by exploitation, social injustice, stealing, and oppression, I am committed to practicing generosity in my thinking, speaking, and acting. I am determined not to steal and not to possess anything that should belong to others, and I will share my time, energy, and material resources with those who are in need. I will practice looking deeply to see that the happiness and suffering of others are not separate from my own happiness and suffering, that true happiness is not possible without understanding and compassion, and that running after wealth, fame, power, and sensual pleasures can bring much suffering and despair. I am aware that happiness depends on my mental attitude and not on external conditions, and that I can live happily in the present moment simply by remembering that I already have more than enough conditions to be happy. I am committed to practicing right livelihood so that I can help reduce the suffering of living beings on Earth and stop contributing to climate change. True love. Aware of the suffering caused by sexual misconduct, I am committed to cultivating responsibility and learning ways to protect the safety and integrity of individuals, couples, families, and society. Knowing that sexual desire is not love and that sexual active motivated by craving always harms myself as well as others, I am determined not to engage in sexual relations without true love and a deep long-term commitment made known to my family and friends. I will do everything in my power to protect children from sexual abuse and to prevent couples and families from being broken by sexual misconduct. Seeing that body and mind are one, I am committed to learning appropriate ways to take care of my sexual energy and cultivating loving kindness, compassion, joy, and inclusiveness, which are the four basic elements of true love. For my greater happiness and greater happiness of others practicing true love, we know that we will continue beautifully into the future. Loving speech and deep listening. Aware of the suffering caused by unmindful speech and the inability to listen to others, I am committed to cultivating loving speech and compassionate listening in order to relieve suffering and to promote reconciliation and peace in myself and among other people, ethnic and religious groups and nations. Knowing that words can create happiness or suffering, I am committed to speaking truthfully using words that inspire confidence, joy, and hope. When anger is manifesting in me, I am determined not to speak. I will practice mindful breathing and walking in order to recognize and to look deeply into my anger. I know that the roots of anger can be found in my wrong perceptions and lack of understanding of the suffering in myself and in other people. I will speak and listen in a way that can help myself and other persons to transform suffering and see the way out of difficult situations. I am determined not to spread news that I do not know to be certain, and not to utter words that can cause division or discord. I will practice right diligence to nourish my capacity for understanding, love, joy, and inclusiveness, and gradually transform anger, violence, and fear that lie deep in my consciousness. Nourishment and healing. aware of the suffering caused by unmindful consumption. I am committed to cultivating good health, both physical and mental, for myself, my family, and my society by practicing mindful eating, drinking, and consuming. I will practice looking deeply into how I consume the four kinds of nutrients, edible foods, sense impressions, violations, and consciousness. I am determined not to gamble or to use alcohol, drugs, or any other products which contain toxins, such as certain websites, electronic games, TV programs, films, magazine books, and conversations. I will practice coming back to the present moment to be in touch with the refreshing, healing, and nourishing elements in me and around me, not letting regrets and sorrow drag me back into the past, nor letting anxieties, fear, or craving pull me out of the present moment. I am determined not to try to cover up loneliness, anxiety, or other suffering by losing myself in consumption. I will contemplate, interbeing, and consume in a way that preserves peace, joy, and well-being in my body and consciousness, and in the collective body and consciousness of my family, my society, and earth. I'd like to invite the offers come up, like the incense. Within your package, you should find the incense offering gatha. We'll be chanting that together. In gratitude, we offer this incense throughout space and time to all Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. May it be fragrant as earth herself, reflecting careful efforts, wholehearted awareness, and the fruit of understanding, slowly ripening. May we and all beings be companions of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. May we awaken from forgetfulness and realize our true home. Hi, all. Thanks for coming out. Before we get started, I want to give a couple courtesy announcements. Families, anybody with small children are welcome to use the downstairs area, or anybody if they need to step away for anything. There's a bathroom down there as well as a water fountain. There's some toys and things too. So if you need to build some Legos, there's some Legos down there. Also, just be aware if there's any groups of people that want to sit together. Just making sure we can move around and make room for that if we need to. And also, if you do need to walk across, we ask that you avoid walking in front of the dais, and maybe you can kind of go from around the back. That would be just out of respect. And also, when we chant, just chant together. Make sure you're not chanting over or under anybody. Kind of keep it a light, medium pace, and we'll get through it together. With that, I'd like everybody to stand and say hi to each other, greet each other. Be on page 7. I go for refuge to Buddha, my deeply awakened mind, the living source of understanding and compassion, which must be cultivated to be known fully. I go for refuge to Dharma, the path of mindful living, leading to healing, joy, and enlightenment, the way of peace, which must be cultivated to be known fully. I go for refuge to the Sangha, the loving and supportive community of practice, realizing harmony, awareness, and liberation, which must be cultivated to be known fully. I am aware that the three jewels are within my heart. I vow to realize them. I vow to understand living beings and their suffering. I vow to cultivate loving kindness and compassion and to practice joy and equanimity. I vow to live simply and sanely, content with few possessions, and to keep my body healthy. I vow to let go of all worry and anxiety in order to be light and free. I am aware that I owe so much to my parents, teachers, friends, and all beings. I vow to be worthy of their trust, to practice wholeheartedly, so that understanding and compassion will flower, and I can help living beings be free from their suffering. May the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha support my efforts. May the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha support my efforts. May the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha support my efforts. On the next page, we'll be doing the Heart Sutra. Of prajna, paramita, received the emptiness of all 5 skandhas and delivered all beings from their suffering. O Shariputra, form is no other than emptiness, emptiness no other than form, form is emptiness, emptiness form. The same is true of feeling, thought, impulse, and consciousness. O Shariputra, all dharmas are empty. They are neither born nor annihilated. They are not defiled nor immaculate. They do not increase nor decrease. So in emptiness, no form, no feeling, no thought, no impulse, no consciousness, no eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, mind, no form, sound, smell, taste, touch, or objects of mind, no realm of sight, no realm of consciousness, no ignorance, nor extinction of ignorance, no old age and death, nor extinction of them, no suffering, no cause of suffering, no cease from suffering, no path to the out of suffering, no knowledge, no attainment, no realization, for there is nothing to attain. The Bodhisattva holds on to nothing but prajna, paramita. Therefore, the mind is clear of any delusive hindrance. Without hindrance, there is no fear. Away from all perverted views, one reaches final nirvana. All Buddhas are past, present, and future, through faith in prajna, paramita, attain to the highest perfect enlightenment. Know then the prajna, paramita, is the great Dharma, the radiant fearless mantra, the utmost supreme mantra, which is capable of allaying all pain. This is true beyond all doubt. Proclaim now the highest wisdom, the prajna, paramita, gate, gate, para gate, para samgate, bodhisattva. Gate, gate, para gate, para samgate, bodhisattva. Gate, gate, para gate, para samgate, bodhisattva. Dharma, prajna, paramita, Hridaya Sutra. My name's Sonshin. It's a name that was given to me by my teacher Suji when I took on the precepts. Sonshin means existing or being in with heart or with mind. So that's what I will try to do today, is just be with you with my heart and mind. So today I'm going to be talking on the third precept. There's lots of different translations. I guess one would be not to misuse or abuse sexuality, to practice true love. And I will say that when I took this on, I did it pretty lightheartedly, like, yeah, I'll do this one. And then the weeks prior, coming up to it, realizing like how heavy of a precept this one really is for me. I think the first things that come to mind is what this precept is not, what it isn't for me, I think was the first important realization. For me, this precept is not a cage, a fundamentalism, something that makes life rigid, a constant reminder of what I'm not able to fulfill or do. Another thing this precept is not a tool of discrimination. As many people part of the LGBTQ community know, morality set in this sort of light has been a tool to harm for many of us. Anybody who's ever loved somebody a way that's not seen as the norm has felt this. Anybody who's had a friend that people didn't agree with have dealt with this. And lastly, I didn't want to see this precept as a weight of a trauma. This maybe more than any other precept brings a lot of that trauma with it from anybody who's been a victim to any sort of abuse. I've also seen this as a way to kind of keep people in trauma, as a way to control people, to make people, bring people shame. And I didn't want this to be a vehicle for that either. So once I kind of broke the whole thing down, I tried to ask, well, what am I left with? Well, I'm left with love. And I think trying to define what that really is. I think when we think of love, we think of a lot of the fruits of love, whether that's friendships or relationships. But I think there's something a little bit more essential to that. One way that I try to think of love, at least in the Buddhist sense, is to think of some core concepts in Buddhism. The first one being emptiness, which is a pretty hard concept to really grasp at first. We just chanted about it in the Heart Sutra, and it will do a better job at trying to explain it than I will here. But I'll do my best to echo what it says. Emptiness is the idea that things don't hold on to a fixed form. The constant changing of things. The adage of form is emptiness, emptiness is form, just like we said. I really love that we light incense at the beginning, because incense is an amazing analogy for emptiness to me. Because just as you can kind of see the smoke billowing up, constantly changing and forming, it's impossible to say that right there, that second that you just missed, that's the true incense form. Everything else is just trying to work its way back to that. It's kind of a silly way to see incense. Or if you're listening to a song, the Ninth Symphony said, on the 6th page in the 17th measure, that right there, that's the Ninth Symphony. Everything else is just leading up to that. It's a little bit of a silly way to listen to music. And I think in a way, to see people in that way is also, I think, a bit of an error. We're much more connected than that. Dependent on each other, changing. And that brings to the second big concept that I think can help us find that true love, and that's rebirth. For a lot of Buddhists, that can mean something as big and wide as reincarnation. Whether or not you believe in that, I think the way I like to see rebirth is a constant rebirth. That every instant you get a new chance. Every moment you kind of begin anew. Just as a smoke rising, and every single snap of the fingers, it changes. It gets another chance to be what it is. And I think being able to show our love in that way too, where every moment is a fresh start. Free of the weight of everything that led up to it, and free of the expectations of what it might become. I think that in itself is a kind of a true love. And then the last big concept that I think goes into love is interdependence, which kind of ties everything up neatly. The smoke doesn't just rise on its own accord. The air in the room is shaping it. The incense lighters that came up to light it had a part of it. The people who manufactured the incense, all of us looking at the incense coming up and giving it some meaning behind that, breathing it in, how that changes our perception of the room. Nothing can exist in a vacuum. It's all connected and together. I think when you see that, it brings you closer to that true love. So when I try to think of this precept, I try to abandon all the things I said in the beginning, that it's a fundamentalism, that's a way to discriminate or to bring trauma or shame. It's just trying to find how can we really get to the heart of what love is, And no matter what the relationships are, whether it's with friends, with a lover, with a teacher, with a child, how can we bring that to that? And I'll give you a couple examples of how I try to do that in my own life. The first one I'll give is related to my work. I work with people who have autism. I work as a therapist. I also train therapists to work with people who have autism. I will say that I've yet to meet a family who doesn't bring the weight of expectations into that space. You know, the world gives you what is expected of a child growing up, where they should be when they reach a certain age. You know, they should know their ABCs by this point. They should know how to talk by this point. They should know how to walk by this point. And when they see that their child's missing some of those markers, it's a huge dukkha, suffering tied to that. One of the biggest lessons that I try to bring to my families is, don't see the child that you wish that you had. Don't see that concept. See the person in front of you. Meet them where they're at. Cultivate from that space. Grow it up. If you're always expecting that the tree in your backyard is going to give you apples, you're going to be really disappointed when pine cones start popping up. But a pine cone tree is really cool. Don't miss it. In the same way, when I'm talking to my coworkers and I see how much compassion that they're able to bring in working with these kids, and then they get discouraged, I'm going to say, make sure you're treating yourself with the same grace that you're bringing to your clients too. In the same way, we don't expect them to get it the first time. I don't try to bring that same expectation. You definitely see this in any sort of service industry job, which I'm sure a big amount of us, including myself, have worked in too, where we're expected always to bring the smile and grace to the customer. But yet, do we ever get that back in the kitchen? It's never there. If only we could reflect that same energy back, right? Kind of seems a little bit hollow in that point if we can't do that. Another place that I try to show this Buddhist love, colored by emptiness, interdependence, and rebirth, is talking with my family. So like many people in the room, maybe haven't always had the greatest relationships with my family. Especially if you want to get into extended family too, it can get pretty dicey, pretty messy. But I want to do my best that if there is any friction, that it can at least end with me, and that I don't take it with me when I leave. If I'm talking to somebody, I'm going to do my best to just see them in that moment, that sort of rebirth. If I can come to them and not bring the 35 years of weight leading up to this point into that conversation, if I can meet them without hopefully 35 more years, we'll see, of expectations ahead of me, and I can just be there with them, at least I can do my part to give them that chance to step up or to see them where they're really at. There's so many times when we'll come face to face with somebody in a conversation and we've already colored that conversation. We've already had it. Doesn't matter what they say. That's not the love I'm talking about here. I can't guarantee that those will always go well. That's why we have the other precepts, right? Don't put yourself in danger. Preserve your life. So that's the easy part. The hard part is that this is a precept that I think you can practice even if you're the last person on earth, because it becomes really tough when you're reflecting that love towards yourself. Just as parents put those expectations on their children, just as society puts those expectations on you, we see ourselves in that way too. How can we look back at ourselves using that concept of rebirth, constant rebirth? How can I know that every moment is a new chance, that I get to be fresh? That even if I mess up, you know what? I messed up, reset, I'm going to try it again. I'm not going to bring all that with me. That constant interdependence, knowing that I am not just myself. I am this great sort of focal point that everything else is coming together in myself, and realizing that connective part of the world too. That even when I'm alone sitting on a cushion, I'm bringing the whole world with me in a way. And when I'm reaching out to others, there's that connectivity as well. That emptiness, knowing that I can't hold on to these forms that I've put onto myself. You see this especially in the queer community, where you're expected to love a certain way, to present a certain way. But when you can let go of that form and you can just be, there's real love there. And even if that's not a community you're part of, everybody has felt at some point where they weren't fitting into an expectation, what they thought they should be, what kind of job they thought they should have, where they should be in their practice. And they miss where they're at. They keep hoping for apples, getting pine cones. I think that's part of sitting, and why we do it is to practice this kind of love and this self-love. Because if you can sit just with yourself and try to let go the before and the after, get connected to that rebirth, knowing that every single moment is a new chance, knowing that you're connected to everything around you, and knowing that these forms, these ideas, these boxes that we're supposed to fit in, they're just tools, maybe to help us in society a little bit, but you don't have to keep them. You can kind of define your own as you go. And in a way, when we sit, I feel like that's what we're doing. We're letting go of that stuff. We're just sitting. We're just being in that moment, letting the smoke change, being there with every little change of the smoke. We're letting the music play by, not trying to attach to that one note. That was it. Don't hold on to it. There's a lot to this precept. I think for a lot of people, they need to take this in different ways. For some people, it is a very physical practice action they need to take. Maybe they need to redefine some of their relationships until they can find a way to be more healthy about this. For a lot of people, there was consent that was broken, or they need to work on getting the consent from others. I think all of that stuff is implied when you break it down to this level, though, for sure. I don't think there's anything more beautiful than meeting somebody face to face and just letting them be who they are in the moment. Even if you've known them for years, you'll see something different and something new, for sure. So I want you to take this into our meditation that we're going to do here. I try to give you a spicy one every time. So we're going to do some of this self-love, but not in the corny, I'm great, I love myself, I'm okay, I'm going to do this kind of affirmations way. But I want you to stay connected to these three concepts during this time. The concept of emptiness. Let those boxes slip away. Even the ones you've made for yourself. I have this certain personality. I'm good at this. I know that I have this certain skill, or I am this certain way, or I'm good at this or bad at this. Set it down for a second. At least as much as you're comfortable with. The idea of interdependence. You're not just yourself. How much of you is determined on your surroundings, or the people around you, the history around you. And the rebirth. If you get off, if you get these things popping back in, you know what? Let it down and start again. Every single second's a new chance to restart and reset. And give yourself those. Don't try to hold on to some of these things. It's like train cars derailing, dominoes falling over. Let it go. Start again. Every second's a new chance. I'm going to ring the bell 3 times so that we can start. And at the end, I'll ring it again to end. Now I'd like to invite time to bring up any joys or concerns that anybody may have. I don't know if we have a mic ready to go. Perfect. So just raise your hand if you have anything that you'd like to bring up for joys or concerns.
Thank you. I was just taking a moment to see if I saw our Sangha member, Upaya, here, and I don't believe he's here. He's having surgery this week, and so all of us hold Upaya Jeff in our thoughts and wish him well for a successful surgery. Good recovery.
I can use my mic. I think I mentioned last time I was here that my father had surgery, getting a pacemaker put in, and they've been having some complications. They've been in and out of the hospital for the last week or so. So, still trying to figure out what's going on, trying some new medications and things. So, just keep them in your minds.
Hello. I just have a general joy for life and being alive.
As long as the mic is this close. I've been gone to California for the last 2 months with kids, grandkids, and the birth of a great grandson. So was pleased to be there, and I'm very pleased to be back here. Great to see all of you.
My joy is that I just realized we have a working sound system in this room this morning, which makes it possible to hear so many more important things.
I think I got to be the guinea pig there. So. Well, if that's all, I'd like to take a couple moments just to hold these all in our hearts and reflect on them for a little while. All right, so we have a few announcements, so I'll try to go through those. We do have the GRBT board meeting. The Sangha members are invited to observe, and that's, you know what? I think it's already happened. Hopefully it went well. Also, we have our Buddhist-based recovery meetings Monday at the temple, or you can join via Zoom. Wednesdays at the Alano Club, 1020 College Avenue. And then Fridays, I believe that's changed because I don't know if they're at the park still. There was one change. Oh, it's here. Yep. So it's going to be happening here, also through Zoom as well. We also have an online meditation group that meets on Wednesdays, 7:30 to 8:15 p.m. And you can join via Zoom, online meditation group. You can also contact Kunga for more information about that. We also have a Thursday Dharma discussion group, and that's been happening here at the temple from 9:30 to 11 a.m. And they are doing readings as well as a discussion. And then we also have our Ulaanbaatar Day potluck, and that is happening, I believe, a week from today. So you still have time. So you're invited to come celebrate with us. It is a potluck, so they would recommend bringing a dish that serves about 6 people. Also, if you could mark any sort of ingredients that might be in there, so if there's anybody with any sort of food intolerances or special dietary restrictions, that they can just know it's in there. Is there any other announcements that I'm missing?
Is that? Hi, my name is Jake. My Dharma name is Atrasta, and it's my turn to do the Dana announcement. Dana in the Buddhist practice is the practice of generosity. This temple, everything from the rent, the lights, the heat, the new speaker system that we've got going on, is all result of the generosity of the members of the Sangha. As are the talks that are given, the potlucks that are organized, all of that. No one here collects any kind of compensation for any of the services they provide for the temple, and everything here is done on a volunteer basis. If you would like to get involved in supporting the temple, there are a couple of ways you can do that. You can volunteer your time, which goes towards helping keep the temple clean, helping set up and clean up the events we have, like the potluck that's coming up next week, which if you would like to get involved with, just talk to myself or Kate. And if you would like to get involved in donating either materially or monetarily, toilet paper is always welcome, other things like that. And there are also Dana boxes at either end of the Dharma hall where you can leave cash or check. And there's a QR code that links to PayPal. If you're watching online, there's a link under the Show More button on YouTube that links to PayPal online. And you can also go to zengr.org where there's a link to donate there as well. And that is all.
I'll invite you. Oh, sorry. All right. I'd like to invite you all to stand as we go through our closing gathas. Page 9. For all unskillful action ever committed by me since of old, on account of my beginningless greed, anger, and ignorance, born of my body, mouth, and thoughts, I now atone for them all. Past is the robe of compassion, a formless field of benefaction. I wear the Buddha's teachings for the benefit of all